Charles Manson, 36, chose a house at random, tied up the family at gunpoint, then ordered his followers to go inside and commit ritual slaughter.
Why do you think man is here on this planet? What's his purpose? Why is he in a body?
Well, he was put here, and he was supposed to make his own way out of it.
Who put him here?
Well, call it a supreme being or higher forces. And he actually, and I hold this in common with many, many sages, he was put here to work out his own salvation. And we feel in Scientology that we've made a very big stride in that direction.
In 1963, while a prisoner at the federal penitentiary at McNeil Island in Washington State, Charles Manson heard other prisoners galvanize towards a self-help guide titled Dianetics, The Modern Science of Mental Health. Dianetics was written by a science fiction author named L. Ron Hubbard, who originally wrote this nonfiction book because he allegedly discovered a therapeutic technique for clearing away self-destructive mental habits. However, what was once just a book would later become the basis for L. Ron Hubbard's new religion, Scientology. Years before Manson was convicted of the Tate LaBianca murders, he declared that he was a Scientologist. He never became an official member of the Church of Scientology, but was apparently first exposed to the religion after talking to other prisoners about Hubbard's book, Dianetics. At that time, Manson was dabbling in a number of different religions, and reportedly found Scientology appealing because of its mind control tactics. An alleged internal Scientology memo addressed to Mary Sue Hubbard, the wife of L. Ron Hubbard, surfaced in 2017, claimed that Manson underwent 150 hours of a Scientology process from cellmate Lafayette Reimer. Until discovering Scientology, Manson had been a petty criminal and drifter who spent his life in and out of jail. But when Manson was released from McNeil Island in 1967, he was a new figure, a charismatic street preacher who gathered a flock of followers that would do anything for him, including murder. After Manson was released from prison in 1967, one of the first things he did was go to the Scientology Center in San Francisco. According to one of his early followers, Manson apparently told the center that he was clear. In Scientology, the term clear refers to a specific state achieved through auditing, a process of self-examination and counseling. When someone reaches this state, they are considered to be free of their reactive mind, which is believed to be the hidden source of irrational behavior and insecurities. The center in San Francisco apparently wanted Manson to stay. However, they wanted him to start at the bottom of the group and sweep the floors. Manson, who already started his family with his earliest members, knew he wanted something more than to just sweep floors, because he was already doing that in prison. So Manson and his family quickly moved to Los Angeles, where he went to the Scientology Celebrity Center in July of 1968. Manson was very erratic, even for those in Scientology. So much so, his original log entry in the Scientology Celebrity Center had the receptionist make a note that Manson was type 3, which translates in Scientology to psychotic. Manson would eventually leave the church, but he gained what he needed from Hubbard's religion. Manson was barely literate, so he didn't delve too deeply into Hubbard's book itself, but he was apparently gifted at absorbing information and conversation, and by talking to other prisoners and later members of the church, Manson gleaned enough from Scientology to synthesize a new theology that he wanted to create, where as the leader, he combined a mix of the Beatles' White Album, the hippie movement, the writings of Hitler, and Scientology.
You've all judged yourselves poorly.
Are you guys proud of a system where a man cannot defend himself? Are you proud of it?
That was an 8-month trial with many witnesses. What are you going to do now?
That was a trial, 8 months of prosecution until Charlie's out.
Looks like that will be never.
He'll be out. All the people will be out.
What makes you so sure?
Angela Davis will be out. Bobby Seale will be out. There's a revolution. We'll be here.
When do you expect this revolution?
You going to be sitting here?
Soon.
When is soon?
Very soon.
The Manson family really started to gain members, with Manson himself preaching the idea of mind triumphing over matter. This pitch was exactly the same that L. Ron Hubbard used to pitch his religion off of Dianetics. Hubbard claimed to suffer from some form of post-traumatic stress disorder following World War II. His attempts to create a new science of the mind, culminating in the publication of Dianetics, can be understood as an attempt to self-medicate. The basic content of Dianetics was a retelling of psychoanalytic theory. Like Sigmund Freud, Hubbard taught that the brain recorded memories which were stored in the unconscious mind, and that these memories are the cause of psychological, emotional, or even physical issues. Through Dianetics, Hubbard claimed that most illnesses were psychosomatic and caused by these stored memories. Physical issues such as arthritis, allergies, asthma, ulcers, and even migraine headaches were all caused by these memories, according to Hubbard. Hubbard said that the best way to treat these illnesses would be by sharing your memories with a friendly listener, also known as an auditor. Then a person could overcome their past pain and thus cure themselves. It isn't documented that Manson believed that this cleansing of memories was actually legitimate, but he did believe that being an auditor or a friendly listener could be the key in manipulating others to follow his cause. At the Spahn Ranch, the Manson family headquarters, Manson combined his version of Scientology, auditing with hypnotic techniques he learned in prison. Those methods, along with the geographical isolation, drugs, and sex, led to his eventual growth as a notorious cult leader of a family that will do anything for him. Ultimately, in August of 1969, Manson took advantage of his control over his family and sent them off to murder actress Sharon Tate and others at her home. The next night, Manson went with his followers to kill supermarket mogul Lino LaBianca and his wife. After the arrest of Manson and members of his family, prosecutor Vincent Bugliosi claims that the motive for the murders was for Manson to set out his master plan of Helter Skelter. His belief was that a race war was imminent in the United States between the black population and the white population, and these murders would be the catalyst. In Manson's trial, the prosecution argued that the Tate-LaBianca murders were meant to be a triggering event for Helter Skelter, and Manson controlled his followers to complete his ultimate goal. The Helter Skelter philosophy referenced various Beatles songs, including those on the White Album, and also referred to passages in the Book of Revelations. However, a few years after Manson and members of his family were convicted on the idea of Helter Skelter, an author claimed that the main reasons for the murders were actually more connected to an offshoot of Scientology, named the Process Church of the Final Judgment.
The final reckoning.
An end and a new beginning.
And for this purpose Christ and Satan joined.
Pure love descended from the pinnacle of heaven, united with pure hatred raised from the depths of hell.
Repayment of the debt.
Fulfillment of the promise.
All conflicts are resolved.
An end and a new beginning.
The end of hell and the beginning of heaven.
The end is now. The beginning is to come.
The Process Church of the Final Judgment was a dark-robed cult-like religious movement first starting in the United Kingdom and then in the United States from 1963 to 1974. The group was popular among the hippie movement and was linked to both Scientology and Satanism. The group's connection to Scientology was based on its founders, Marianne McLean and Robert D. Grimston, who were original members of the Church of Scientology under L. Ron Hubbard. That was until they decided to leave, believing that they could use the technology and teachings from Hubbard in a better way to increase the effectiveness of group work. The new Scientology offshoot became known as The Process and started to gather members throughout London in 1963. By 1966, The Process began to operate as a church. It became increasingly evangelistic and focused on attracting new members. It opened a library and an all-night coffee shop known as Satan's Cavern. It also began issuing a magazine, at first titled The Common Market, and later renamed The Process. From late 1968 onward, they began spending most of their time in the United States. The church opened chapters in many U.S. cities, including a presence in San Francisco, during the time Manson was starting his family in the same area. During its existence, the Process Church attracted much publicity. In urban myth, the Process Church came to be associated with ritual murders, although no evidence of any such connection was ever available. Rumors spread that a number of dogs, specifically German Shepherds, had been sacrificed around San Francisco, with these actions sometimes being associated with the Process Church, which kept German shepherds as pets. There was never any proof that these stories or sacrifices were true. However, the rumors grew to the point that police investigating the Tate LaBianca murders suspected a possible connection between these sacrificial-like murders and the Process Church. Nothing ever came from these investigations, but in 1971, author and poet Ed Sanders published the book The Family about Charles Manson, with an entire chapter dedicated to the connection between the Process and Manson. In the book, Sanders claims that Manson was not only a member of the Process Church, but their teaching directly influenced him. This accusation from the book prompted a defamation lawsuit from the Process towards Sanders and the publisher, who agreed in a settlement to remove the chapter in future books in the United States, but many books were already published and sold with that chapter. A similar lawsuit was filed in the United Kingdom, with the Process losing their suit. Timothy Willie, who was one of the original members of the Process Church, wrote a book claiming that church members visited Manson in prison during the trial for an issue of their Process magazine. However, he also stated that Manson had never been involved in the Process Church, and there was not even a grain of truth to those accusations. Although no connection between the Process Church and Manson was ever substantiated, the group's reputation was damaged by the association. The number of donations received began to decline, and church members sometimes received abuse in public. To shift the group's image, its leaders began to play down their image of black garments and robes, and presented a softer interpretation of their doctrine to limit the satanic elements. So where does the truth really lie with Manson's connection to Scientology? Most likely, Charles Manson is America's Frankenstein monster, pieced together by multiple ideologies, including drugs, sex, a time period that was already starting an anti-establishment revolution, and Scientology.